Hello, my Teaserking family. How's everybody today? Ready for week 4 of college football. FYI, to Pittsburgh tonight, if you got about a half hour. I talked about it on my pro picks yesterday. Even though I was reviewing the prior week, I'll do pros tomorrow. But I did say take Pittsburgh tonight, so take Pittsburgh tonight. 4 locks are posted. I got 3 college and my first pro lock, and some other key picks. And I'm waiting on like some injury news about putting out other picks. Nick pointed out there's a guy on Twitter called Teaser Space King. He's got a stupid crown and a stupid little king thing. So just ignore him. I don't know if he buys my picks and then he sells them as his own or whatever. Just ignore him. That's all we can do. We just gotta assume he's an idiot. But the problem is, if he picks a bunch of losers, I don't want him to think that I'm that guy. So again, it's just retarded. But I guess just ignore it. But if you see something, just let me know. But there's nothing I can do. And I renew my Teaserking website. Like, you go on a site to renew the name, www.teaserking.com. So that's coming up. I think I automatically do it, but it's early August. Anyway, so that's what's happening. Gold still dirt cheap. I did see where Saudi's announcing they'll take anybody's money, and I am seeing sniffs of China and Russia announcing how much gold they really have. 15,000 tons for Russia, 30,000 for China. And if the price of gold goes up, they're going to be really rich. So I think that's another reason they're suppressing the price. But you can't keep the price suppressed. You can do it for a little bit. Like, you can only hold a ball underwater for so long, and then eventually it's going to pop up. So that's what's happening. See, what the U.S. tried to do by J.P. Morgan has backfired on them. They're keeping the price down so you buy the dollar and you don't buy gold, because they want to control you and they want to have the monopoly, which is terrible in the first thing anyway. So J.P. Morgan, half their staff's going to jail for price fixing, and that's come out. But what they didn't anticipate was that the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians are buying all this gold cheaply. So they're paying, instead of 20,000 an ounce, they're paying 1,800. So they've accumulated all this gold, and it's backfired, because when it hits the $20,000, $30,000 an ounce price, and silver's 5,000 an ounce, guess who has all the gold? Guess who has all the money? He who has the gold makes the rules. So take advantage, buy it as much as you can. I was talking to a lady in the pool today, and I said, there's nothing you can do. You can't hold on to dollars. You're not going to be able to get that out of your bank. Your only real choice is gold or silver, or Tom Brady, your mantle cards, or some diamonds or rubies or sapphires or gold jewelry or Picassos. You got to have a real asset. And normally a house is, but if you're in your house and you paid $200,000, it's worth $400,000, you're okay. But you can't buy a $400,000 house now after it's gone up from $200,000. It's not going to happen. Then I had a conversation with a kid who was like, oh, well, what do you think of the banks that buy all the houses and try to sell the rent high? I go, they have a cost. They got to pay at least property taxes and maintenance on the house and utilities. They don't want to own the house. Banks do not want to own a house. They're not, nobody wants to own it and not get income in. So even if Bill Gates were to buy 1,000 houses, he doesn't want them empty, because he's got to pay the property tax, the utilities, the maintenance, mow the lawns, all this shit. He doesn't want to pay without revenue. So if he wants to charge $10,000 a month for rent and nobody pays it, he's got to lower the rent. And that's what that was my point going across. So just wanted to get the gold, silver, and the economy out of the way. It's very critical. And I know I've definitely harped it a lot here. But it's very important. It's really freedom, and it's really you've got to realize that. Okay, so why don't we get to the college point spreads as of 7:41 Eastern time? And I stumbled on something today. If you go on Scores and Odds online, you don't get both the line and the the total on the same thing unless you click into any game and go matchups. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it gives you each game total, but it doesn't give you like all the casinos. I like when you have all the casinos, but I hate when they just give you one or the other. I want to see the spread and the total at the same time. So with that said, let's get some lines. Okay, so we've got actually a game today. Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, 7-0 Coastal Carolina. They were 2.5 and 63.5. Georgia State's not Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern is the one that beat Nebraska, who scores a lot. I would have went over had it been Georgia Southern, but being Georgia State, they're still an over team. I would probably play that, but the game's already started, so don't worry about that. West Virginia, Virginia Tech, that's already started. West Virginia -2 was 1.5, 49.5. That was 50. West Virginia is the over, VTech's the under. I like when the over's the dog. West Virginia, it's a real hard call because I don't know how good West Virginia lost to Pitt in overtime, lost to Kansas. I don't know how good Virginia Tech is, so it's really not a play. All right, tomorrow's game, Virginia-Syracuse. I got Syracuse -10, up from 9, and over under a 54. What the? I must have been 53. I thought it said 63, but I don't see that. So 54, Syracuse laying the 10. Air Force in Nevada also tomorrow. Air Force is 24. That's where it's been. 46.5 up from 45. Boise UTEP that's also tomorrow. A lot of Friday nights. We got Boise -16 up from 15.5. We've got 45.5 and 46. I'll leave that. So Boise, UTEP. So let me get through the lines, then we'll go back. Iowa State 2.5, 45.5 to Baylor. We all know how we like Baylor as the dog. Georgia 45, 62.5, up from 44. 62.5 up from 61. Somebody needs to explain the over on this game. I think what they're looking at is Kent State scored 60 points against, Southfield Lathrop High School. I don't quite get 62.5. Do they actually think Kent State's going to score in this game? Look at the Oklahoma game, 33-3. Look at the Washington game, 45-20. And believe me, they're not putting up a 20 against Georgia. This is a 48-0 game, maybe 52-0. You got 62, you're going under 68. Oh my God, you've got to be kidding. See, here's where it helps that I know what I'm doing and I stand by what I'm doing. I'm not going to be, the spread's high. Well, why is Vegas putting it that high? I better go over. I don't do that. That's why we win, because I look at the score, I make it up, 51-0. That's your final. 62, got to go under 68. How in the hell can it possibly go Georgia Kent State when Georgia Arkansas was 31-0 Georgia last year, and you see how good Arkansas is? Jay Bradley 100. Where do you buy gold? I go to there's a coin store, and I'd be happy to give it to you. It's on some other videos. And it's a coin store, and the guy has gold and silver, and you can call him up and give him my name and say, I'd like to buy, and he can sell you right over the phone. And he charges $15 for second day FedEx. I was in Alabama working at a temp job, and I had called him up, and I got a couple ounces of gold. I used my, I think, debit card, and FedEx was $15 to Alabama. In 2 days, I got it, and everything came just as he said. So you never pay tax on gold because it's money, and it's money. And don't let him tell you any different. He won't, but if people tell you it's not an investment, it's money. You're buying money. Just as if you were buying the euro or the Swiss franc or something. Really, that's what you're doing. Only it's a better investment. Okay, thanks. Sounds great. Do you want the number? I probably have it. Here we go. So this is an order I just did. So Redford Jewelry in Tulane. There's the phone number. And you can see what I just did. I just bought 5 Gold Eagles and 6 ounces of silver. So let me read it to you. 734-667-1204. Tell them Howard gave you the number. It really won't matter. He'll ship it to you $15, second day FedEx. It might be a little bit more, although oil has gone down as far as gas. It was $5 a gallon. Now here it's about $3.70. So it's really gone down. But call them up, tell them what you want. You can use credit card, debit card, pay a check if you want. And he charges, I think, 3% he doesn't charge me silver. Gold, he charges me 3% because that's his fee. And off you go. Just understand, you cannot. So I'm at the pool with some lady she's just swimming in my lane. And I said, well, what do you do? I'm in IT. I says, well, I don't know how much you have in your bank, but if you have like 100,000 in your bank or more, good luck getting it out. They're going to tell you they don't have it, or they're only going to give you 10,000. And if you went tomorrow to go get it, they might limit you to 10,000 and want to know why you want it. In which case I would say, I'm just going to Vegas, or I'm just going shopping. They just need to ask, but you don't really have to tell them. And I certainly wouldn't say I'm buying gold. I would say I'm just going to Vegas, or I'm going on vacation. And so I said, really what you're doing is exchanging cash that's going down for money that's going up. And gold's really not an investment once it hits, like if gold was at its true price and the true price is $20,000, it's not an investment. You're not buying it so it goes up to $21,000. You're buying it to buy things. And if you think of, let's say you bought a mantle card, and let's say it was $100,000 for a PSA 10 1965 mantle card, and it's $100,000. You're really not buying it as an investment. You're buying it as an asset. You're buying it. I got the card. It's graded. This is what it's worth. And that will hold the value. So it's very important you understand value is I can go buy a house with an ounce of gold. That's the value of it, not really priced in U.S. dollars. So keep that in mind. The dollar's dropping. And if you hold it, it's like just think of it as a car, right? You got a 2014 Toyota Camry, and the more you drive, it's going down in value. That's exactly what's happening with the dollar. The value is dropping. So you have a chance to exchange it for a 2022, I don't know, Mercedes. And it's going to be 18, the correspondence of the 1800 for the car to buy the Mercedes. And you don't care because you just want to buy the Mercedes. And the Mercedes is going up because it's Mercedes. So as your Camry drops to $1,000, the Mercedes goes up. That's what's going on here. Christopher, good evening. Hi, Christopher. Nice to talk to you. Glad you're here. Jay Bradley, appreciate you, Teaserking. You're an honest dude. Yes, I am, sir. You're buying to keep your money value. I'm buying to survive, because if you really look what's going on, and I don't want to scare everybody here, and I never try to scare anybody, I try to help. And if you read what's going on in China and Japan and freaking UK and Germany and all this electricity problems in Europe. I mean, Jesus Christ, what are they doing over there? What's the name of the place where you buy the gold? Didn't catch it. Sorry, Christopher. This is the name of the store. It's called Redford Jewelry and Coin, and that's the phone number. Now, between me and you, one of the guys I worked with, so the number 734-667-1204. It's a $15 or $20 FedEx second day to wherever you live from Detroit, and it comes fine. There's no problem. So I sent a friend of mine at work. He took $100,000 out of his account and he bought 55 ounces of gold with it. And he showed it to me. And I went to the store with him to talk to the owner to make sure that he took care of my friend. So he got it. $100,000 check, 55 ounces of gold. And the guy, I said, "You sleeping well at night now?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." So, yes, I send people there. They know me. And you just can't hold on to dollars. Jay Bradley, just rewatch the video, Christopher. Oh, well, there you go. No problem. That's where if it's something that takes a minute, I'll take care of it. Where was I at? So anyway, so he got $100,000, but it's like a car. So the U.S. dollar is a car going down in value, right? It's older, it's going down. Nobody wants it. And there's already rumblings of Saudi Arabia saying, "We'll sell oil to anybody. You don't need U.S. dollars," because Biden pissed them off, saying that he killed somebody. And so the guy's mad at him. So now he's selling the oil to Russia and China. And you don't have to pay in U.S. dollars, which eliminates us as the lead currency, which is part of the plan because they want to go digital. And then China and Russia are going to come out and say, "This is how much we have." And that's the black swan. And you better buy your gold and silver soon. Once it hits that, it's going to be $10,000 an ounce. And if you can find it, my guy's having a hard time getting it, but he's still able to get some of it. Jay Bradley, smart. Okay. All right. Back to college football. But if you have any inflation or what's inflation, I ran a video on it, but I'm happy to explain it. It's just the printing of the money, making the money worthless, which is why the prices are up. The prices aren't up because of that's not the inflation, right? So if I bought this mouse and it costs $25 now, that's not the inflation. It just takes more dollars because they're losing value because these idiots are printing it to death. So to make up for the $20 they want, they charge $25. That's why interest rates go up, because if I'm lending $100,000, I want to get 110. I want to make 10%. But the value of the dollar drops so much that I'm only going to get 50,000 back. So I got to raise the interest rate to 10% to get the 110, and that's why housing mortgages are going up. That's why car mortgages are going up. There's a huge amount of cars being repossessed, flooding the used car market because people are defaulting on it. So it's already happening. So just please be careful. Okay. We were just talking about Georgia 62.5. What a joke that is. Maryland and Michigan. Michigan lane 17. It's been about where it is, 64.5. Now, I have Michigan as a 24-point favorite, and I think they're a 24-point favorite in this. I'm not a big J.J. McCarthy fan. I like the other guy better. McCartney hasn't really shown, and really he's not going to show much against Maryland. They don't really have a defense. You could get some points from Tagliabue, but I think Michigan's defense will put pressure on them, and they usually handle a passing team good. So I like Michigan here, but 17, surprised it's staying there. Penn State, 28, 63.5. That number is still about what it is. Now, they're looking at the Ohio game when Penn State killed Ohio. What are you going to do here? Central should be able to score a little bit. Penn State will probably score a lot. So, maybe an over here. South Florida, Louisville 14.5, 64.5. Where is that game? Come on. All right. 14.5, 64.5. That number hasn't changed. Clemson 7, 55 against Wake Forest, 55.5. I looked at the box score, Clemson. They scored 48 on some team last week, and I'm like, did they replace you, Godley? Because he's terrible. And they didn't really. Some of the guy had 2 or 3 passes, but I saw he threw a late touchdown. He was in there. Shipley's running for a lot of the touchdowns. Ugani still stinks, but they're starting to score a little bit. Maybe he's getting a little bit better. He's still not. He's not in Hartman's class on Wake Forest. Clemson -7, 56.5 with their defense. I don't know what to expect in this game. I have a feeling Clemson -1's probably with the defense, but Hartman can light them up. I don't know, but I don't think Wake Forest has the defense. I think Clemson gets the win, but tight. So I love getting the 7s down to 1. There's something about that number. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Buffalo, Eastern Michigan. Eastern is 6 and 60, down from 6.5 and 60.5. Kansas down to 7 and 65.5. Now this is one where I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? Why is this down to 7 from 9? I got Kansas by 14. Duke beat Temple, who sucks, and they beat Northwestern, and I give them credit for that. But Kansas beat West Virginia, and then they blew out Houston. They're good luck stopping them with that running type of quarterback, but he can throw. He's like Jefferson from Arkansas, and they put up points. I love the coach. I love their offense. I watched them against Houston. Duke's not going to stop them. That looks awful tempting to only lay 1 point with Kansas. Again, we understand Kansas is a much better team than they've been the last 5 years. I don't think the public understands that yet. Maybe they've caught on, they score a lot, but you beat a good Houston team. Houston's a lot better than Duke, okay, a lot better. And this offense, Duke's not going to stop this offense. Duke does not have this type of defense. Again, they played Temple and Northwestern, so you can't really look at their defense and say it's wonderful. So Kansas -7. I'm going to give that as my free pick. Again, I gave it to them last week and they won, and let's do it again this week. Kansas laying the 7 down to 1. That's your free pick. Every year I find, like last year, I found Baylor and Oak State and Oregon State. And this year it's Kansas. They are balanced. They have a good offense, a good quarterback. What can Duke do? Duke can't. Houston is a much better defensive team than Duke. Couldn't do anything. I mean, they put up 45 on them. I just don't see Duke being able to keep up with them or stop them, to tell you the truth. So Kansas will be the free pick, laying the 1. I'll give you a nice pro one to go with it. Unless you want a nice college one to go with it, I can do that too. Mississippi State, Bowling Green. Mississippi State 30.5, 52. It's about where it was. Bowling Green, well, it's 2 over teams, so it's probably an over game. TCU 2 over 70.5 against SMU. It was 2.5, a little bit of money on SMU. Probably a pick. SMU can definitely score on TCU. They play them well. Auburn 7 over Missouri. Now with that quarterback, 751.5. That's about where it is. Didn't really move. Auburn's quarterback's terrible. So is Missouri, though. They're not. This isn't the type of team to bet against Auburn with. The Kentuckys, the LSUs, obviously Georgia, teams with a good offense, because Auburn's terrible on their offense. The quarterback's just pathetic. Temple 9.5 against UMass. UMass is a Z team, but Temple's a under team, so it's hard to play the under team against the Z, but I think even Temple can beat UMass. UMass is just, I think they're the worst team. Over under 43, but Temple doesn't score. It's almost an under. UMass isn't going to score as bad as Temple is. Maybe 21-7 Temple. I mean, it's just really weak. UCLA, 21.5, 57. As far as I know, I don't see Thompson Robinson as questionable like he was last week. It was probably some argument they had in a game time is, okay, we need to win. We'll put you in. 21.5. Colorado is the Z team in the Pac-10. So I look for UCLA to hammer them here. You got a very explosive team against a weak team. So you do the math. Notre Dame, North Carolina, this month from Notre Dame -1 to North Car -2, over under 55.5. I'm noticing in the injuries, North Car's got a lot of injuries to receivers and running backs. But are they the starters or are they the reserves? And that's, I wish they'd highlight the starters so you would know. But so I got to go into the box score and look, is Joe Smith, is he a starter that's injured or not? And if they're listed as questionable, you have no idea if they're playing. You just assume they're playing. So North Car -2 to Notre Dame. We know Notre Dame's got no offense. Hard to go under North Carolina because they just score too much. Excuse me. So North Carolina, a good offense here, but you know how the defense can stop the offense. It's a real hard game because North Carolina's got a shit defense. Notre Dame has a good defense and a shit offense and a terrible quarterback, and I doubt their coach. So it's a real hard game to go anywhere in it because you got an over team. North Carolina, if they score a lot, will win easy, and if Notre Dame's defense holds up, then it'll be an under because Notre Dame's not going to score. So that's what you gotta. It's a tough game to bet on a team with no quarterback. Miami against Middle Tennessee. Miami's 25.5, down from 26, 53.5, up from 52. So a little bit of over. Miami's an A team, even though now they're coming off of the loss, which is critical. Middle Tennessee's an even team. They don't score a lot. I got them as a passing team, but they don't get a lot of yards versus Miami, which is now a balanced team because they're running the ball more, which is hurting their scoring because Van Dyke's not throwing like he did last year, which I was afraid of. But off of the loss, I would think Miami at home should rip Middle Tennessee with an average defense. I think Miami puts up a lot. But again, they're still getting used to the coach. They got a great quarterback. Seems to be a good running attack. We'll see. Now the key receiver for Miami is out with the leg. The guy's like the roommate of Van Dyke and his favorite receiver, and he got hurt. So we're missing that. So this is good where he can find another receiver for us. Michigan State, Minnesota. Minnesota -3, 50.5. Really hasn't moved. I got Michigan State -7. Minnesota, there's a few injuries to Michigan State. The receiver that the quarterback's like his roommate is questionable. But Michigan State, after the loss to Washington and a home dog, I think they're pretty live here. Minnesota, good defensive team. See, now I have them as an A team, but they haven't really played anybody. But by stats, they score like 30, give up like 15. So they got a good defense, supposedly. But Michigan State plays Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State every year. It's not going to bother them. Good quarterback, which is the key. I think they're a very live dog here. But with the injuries, if Reed plays, he's the receiver. I would like Michigan State in 9 here. But we got to see if he plays. Tennessee, 10.5, 62.5 over Florida. Tennessee's very explosive against the weaker teams, but Florida, I think, has a pretty good defense. They held Kentucky, who can score to 27. They held Utah, who can really score to 26. So their defense is okay, although South Florida, who sucks, put up 24 on them last week. I think Florida's weaker. I think Tennessee is the much better team, much more explosive. The question is Florida's defense, but Florida doesn't have a quarterback. I think Tennessee gets up, and I think Florida has a hard time coming back. I don't know if I like taking Tennessee and 10.5 down to 4.5. That's a real 7 down to 1 I would think about. So 10.5 to 4.5. But I can't go over because Florida has no offense, but Tennessee does. So if Tennessee can put up their 35, they'll easily win. But how good's Florida's defense? Florida's first game on the road, I don't know. I think Tennessee wins the game, but I'm 34-17, something like that, maybe, possibly. Cincinnati, Indiana. Cincinnati. Okay. Cincinnati is laying 16.5, 57.5. I don't know. 16 is a lot of points to give to a Big Ten team. Indiana's okay. They're not great. Cincinnati has a good defense. The quarterback's from Eastern Michigan who is looking better. He's better than Ritter from a quarterback standpoint. Ritter was better as he could also run. I think it's an under game. I think Cincinnati, really maybe Indy gets 10, but maybe Cincy gets 20. I can see it being more of an under game than laying 10.5 to Indy. You got to be careful. These Big Ten schools, even though there's suck in the Big Ten, this is Cincinnati. I just don't see Cincinnati blowing out Indiana. As bad as Indiana is, they're not that bad. They did beat Illinois, so I think they can move a little. I think it's an under game because Cincinnati's defense. So 57-63, they'll never get there. App State and James Madison, very interesting game. I think it's dead even. App State laying 7, 58.5. I don't know who James Madison is because this is their first year in Division I. They've looked very good so far. They're an A team, but I don't know who they played. Nobody really great. Now, they'll get a lot of attention from us if they can beat App State because we've seen what App State does. App State -7. I do not feel comfortable at all taking App State -1 in this game. Not at all. Over under 58. App State doesn't have the greatest defense as North Carolina lit them up. They hold a weak A&M offense to 14, and then they come from behind to win 32-28 last week to, what was it, Temple? Let me see if I can find App State quick. Yeah, Troy. They beat Troy 32-28. So App State doesn't have a defense against a good offense. James Madison, I think, has a good offense. They are both, so they run and pass. I think this is an extremely close game. I think James Madison in 13 is probably a good play here. But again, they're a Division II team. They're looking good, but this will be how do they play at App State? And App State, believe me, knows this is for their division, right? They have to win this game. So James Madison is not bad. It's probably like when Boise jumped from 2 to 1 or some of these teams. So it's very, very hard to figure. Superficially, I think James Madison in 13 is better than App State -1. Over under, I don't know. I would probably think this will be an over. App State will score 20 to 30 points. James Madison will be in the 20s. It's 58.5 down to 52.5. They should get there fairly easy. Toledo 3 over San Diego State. Okay, -3 and 45 is the number. So Toledo is much the better team. San Diego State's look pathetic. I think their quarterback's injured, questionable. San Diego State normally has a good defense. Toledo put up 21 on Ohio State. They gave up 77, but they're not going to give up 77 to San Diego State. They'll be lucky to score 14. Toledo's usually the best team in the MAC, so you're getting a good team with a weak defense against a team that has no offense. theoretically, this is probably an underplay because San Diego State, usually with a good defense. Hard play. I would have liked Toledo as the dog at San Diego State. Hard to play them as a road favorite. You do not play a lot of road favorites unless they begin with Georgia, Alabama, USC now, Utah maybe. It's very hard to play road favorites. Speaking of a road favorite, Texas, 7 over T-Tech, over under of 61. Texas lost their starting quarterback, broke collarbone or replacements, the second stringers in. T-Tech's an over team, so they're going to score a lot. They normally play them. Texas has a very good running back who lit it up. UTSA, my Texas San Antonio, played him right down to the wire. And then they just Frank Harris got hurt a little bit, was out a little bit, and Texas scored on a pick six or something in a late run, but it was a very close game. That game went into the 60s, and I think Texas San Antonio was a better team than Texas Tech. I just have a real hunch Texas -1 is the play in this game. I don't feel good taking Texas Tech in 13. Texas played Alabama close, but I wanted to see Texas against UTSA to get a feel of, do they not have an offense or is their defense that good? Now, UTSA put up more points than Alabama, which didn't really surprise. UTSA, very well coached team. We make a lot of money on UTSA, and I really wanted to bet them last week, but again, you can't take them against Texas. You can take them in conference. So I really think Texas -1 is the play here. I think they'll win. The running back will just pound Texas Tech. Texas Tech's a pass-happy team. Texas, now they lost their quarterback, but the backup's not bad. And I'm going to make them a little more balanced now because they're going to run the guy, and I don't see Texas Tech stopping this running back. He looked really good. This is like the Clemson one. It's like -7 down to 1 is such a favorite teaser of mine. It's just win. And usually, though, it's road favorites, but it's a Texas, it's a Clemson. It's not, it's not Maryland or Minnesota. Memphis and North Texas. I got Memphis -12.5. That number stayed, and over under 70. That number stayed. 2 over teams, 2 over defenses, which means they both suck. I see the game in the 40s. Is an 80. You're at 70. You should go over, but it's a high over at 70. And I really don't want to get burned on a 62 where all of a sudden one team starts running the ball. This should be an over. It should be an 80, 85-point game, and you're at 70. Tough call because the number's so high. That's why I love the Kansas lock last week. There were 56. You just needed 50. They had it early in the third quarter. But when you start messing around with 70-point over-unders, that's when you really got to worry about it, right? You got to, because when, if it gets – the problem with the 70-point over-under, if one team gets a 42-3 lead, then they start running, and then you don't get there. That's why you normally do it with 2 good quarterbacks, and we would have won with Fresno State last week. Had the quarterback not broke his leg in the third quarter where it got bent back like Joe Theismann, if that doesn't happen, we win easy. We only lost by 2 points, and they ended at the goal line. Had they just, obviously they were going to kick a field goal. Had the quarterback kept it, he'd have walked in, and we would have got the over. So you need both good quarterbacks. In this game, I see Memphis with a good quarterback. North Texas is a balanced team. They could run it. I don't know that you get there with the 70 because they want to keep Memphis off the field and they can run. So I don't know. This is a hard over-under. You want, 2 good. You want Van Dyke against Hartman when Miami plays Wake. We'll be going over unless it's 80. Western Kentucky, 31 over Florida International. Where are you, Western Kentucky? I hate when they get out of order. Since I'm doing it early, I'm going in order, and then they flip it because of game time. Here it is. Western Kentucky, 31, 65.5. Okay, that number hasn't changed. Western Kentucky, we know, very strong passing team, good over team. Florida International is a W with a very weak defense and over. So they give up 35 points on defense. Western Kentucky should light them up. You can't go over because you don't know that Florida International is going to score for you. The key to the over is both teams are going to score. USC, UCLA, you know it's going to be a 100-point game. You get here and you go, well, Florida International probably scores. Florida or Western Kentucky scores because Florida's got weak defense. But what does Florida International do? So then is 31 too high? Do I lay 25 with Western Kentucky? And that's really the problem. Are they going to score? So for me to play this, I got to assume Western Kentucky scores 48 and Florida International gets 14. And even then, it's that's 24, 34. 40. That's a 35-point win, and you're laying 31. So 48-14, you're barely winning. So it's a tough one to play. You need a little more defense out of Western Kentucky to really play it. So I'm going to stay away. UTSA, after a loss, is going to be pissed off. Or are they? UTSA. Do I not have them? They're playing Texas State, so I should have them. UTSA. I might have missed them because I don't think they're on the line earlier, Texas State. They're 42.5-point favorites with an over-under of 70. Wonder why I missed it. Again, I got to check Texas State out. If it's really Texas State or if it's Texas Southern. It says Texas State, but last week Texas State was listed twice. Then I saw once they listed it, it was really Texas Southern. That's why I didn't have them on, but I don't see Texas. I don't see UTSA, and I don't think I'd have missed them because I like UTSA. I would have made them. All right, let's go to UCF 20.5. UCF 20.5, 56.5, up a half point on each. Z team and Georgia Tech. UCF is a team. Apparently, they're going. They beat a very good Florida Atlantic team pretty big last week. We know Georgia Tech, they're terrible. They have no offense and not a really good defense. That should pound them. They're only laying 20 versus, so Western Kentucky's playing Florida International. UCF is better than Western Kentucky, and Georgia Tech's worse than Florida International. They're a Z team, but yet I only have to lay 20 versus the 31. That's my point. It's a much better value to play UCF than it is to play Western Kentucky. So we've got to try to – so what I try to do is narrow it down to about 10 teams, even though I might like 20, and just try to get, well, this is a better return or less risk. I got to lay less points with the better team. So I think UCF handles the 14, but is that the best play for us? I don't know, but I would take UCF there. Oregon, the motherfuckers from last week beat my BYU, 757.5. Now let's really get into this game. Oregon State blows out BYU after getting blown out by Georgia. However, this game is not at Oregon. This game is on the road at Washington State. What have we learned? Washington State's got an excellent defense. This game is 57.5 over. My first thought is I like Washington State in 13, but I like this under a whole lot more at 63.5. Again, Washington State went to Wisconsin and beat them. Oregon coming off an emotional win against BYU. They had to win the game because they got killed by Georgia. Are they really that good? Is Bo Nix really that good? And the question is now Washington State's got tape on Bo Nix at Oregon because they only had the Auburn tape. And you can't get anything out of the Georgia game. Then they play a Division II team. You don't get anything. Now they played BYU and they beat a good BYU team. And now everybody, this is my favorite part. This game is not at Oregon, and they are not playing BYU off of an upset of Baylor. This is them playing a stronger Washington State with a very good defense at Washington State. They're not at Oregon. I would be shocked if Oregon not only wins the game by 10, but wins the game. This is where they're going to be flat. They're on the road in conference. This is extremely difficult to win. And we can see Washington State, the killer defense, is much better than they've been in the past with just the offensive team. They will shut Oregon down pretty much. 24-20 is my pick for this game, which means Washington State in the 13 is good, but the under is also good. I think Washington State's defense holds them down, but their offense isn't good enough to really pound them. So we locked Washington State under last week, and it was an easy one. Again, it was like a 53. We went under 59. I think they won 34-7 or something. It was something in the 30s with an over-under of 50 against a weak team. So we got Washington State in the 20s, but Oregon will not move on this defense. No way. I've seen it even against Idaho. I could just tell the way the defense was playing, how their system works. And then they proved it against Wisconsin, who put up 100 points last week. Not against Washington State, 17-14. So this is, you've got to think outside the box for this one. This is, Oregon beat BYU. Look at it, they'll kill Washington State. No. This game's not at Oregon. And Washington, as I've said, defense will beat offense. I don't think Oregon State has we don't know if they have a good defense or not. BYU moved, what was that fucking score last week? 41-20. So BYU got 20 on them. Oregon got a lot of lucky kind of long passes they ran in for touchdowns. So I don't buy that shit. So they're not going to do that on Washington State's defense. Washington State's seen the film. They know what they're getting in Oregon finally, and that's where the film comes out. So here, I would not touch Oregon with a 10-foot pole. I think Washington State's the better team because of the defense. And the 13's tempting, but 57.5, you got to be freaking kidding me. Go under 63.5 with that one. That's just ridiculous. Ole Miss 21-65.5 against Tulsa. Tulsa's an over. Ole Miss is I think 21. Ole Miss is playing pretty good. Tulsa's a over team with a bad defense. I think Mississippi kind of wins by the 20 or so. Cal 3 over Arizona. Cal, strong defensive team, just lost to Notre Dame. Arizona beat San Diego State, then plays Old Mississippi State and gets killed. The quarterback's all over the place. The Luca, I thought, he's good. And then he gets in against Mississippi State. He throws all these interceptions. So I don't know what we got there. Again, I think you got to take the defensive team. Cal, over under a 50. I am not excited to take this game. I took Arizona, Mississippi State over, and it won. I am not going over with this game. Over a 50. Cal will play Cal played Notre Dame to a 41. Again, Notre Dame has no offense. Arizona at 9 might be a play if the Luca plays raw. Again, not enough information yet on the Luca in Arizona, but I think this is the only way you can go is under on the game. But it's so conflicting because you got an over team and an under team. Liberty, 26.5, 53.5 against Akron. And I believe Liberty's quarterback's out. I saw 2 of them injured on the list. And the over-under went down to 53. So, yeah, you've got a quarterback issue for Liberty. So the over went from 57 to 53, and the line moved down to 26.5. I would avoid it. Akron's a Z team. But you got no quarterback for Liberty. So what do you do with it? You can't. How do you bet them? I mean, they got to win by 40 points. Where are they going to get it from? They don't have a quarterback. Same with the over. Maybe you go under with the game and it's 44-10. Akron won't score. They're terrible. But here's where you want them to play a more explosive team. East Carolina, 16.5. Where are you, boys? 16.5 from 17 and 48.5. I think that's what I had. Navy's been terrible. They lost to Delaware, then they lost their next game. East Cars look very good. They've switched offenses, but they're still throwing enough. They want to run more. Navy's just kind of weak. Just an under team. They're not scoring at all. I think East Car minus the 10.5 is probably a good play here. Ball State, Georgia Southern. Ball State is a Z team. Georgia Southern is an over, laying 9.5, down from 10, up from 8. So it goes from 8 to 10, 9.5. I always laugh about that. Over under a 67.5 is where it is. So hint, hint, you have a Z team, Ball State, against the team that put up 48 on Nebraska and came back with the 21 on UAB, who's a very good team. So this is what I was talking about with the other game with the Z team, which was Liberty Akron. And so here, Liberty's 26 without a quarterback against the Z team. Here you got Georgia Southern at 9.5, a good over team against the Z team with a terrible defense in Ball State. You tell me what you would do. So I have less risk laying the 3 with a good over team that put up 48 on Nebraska that looked like a great offense at home against Ball State, who's a Z team, which means they don't score. How are they going to keep up? Georgia Southern's going to put up 40 on the board. Ball State without a defense. So Georgia Southern, they just beat Nebraska. Okay, they're a little flat, but still play UAB tough. Now they're off a loss at home against the Z team. Look for them to light it up. Look for them to win by at least 30. Old D and Ark State. Old D is laying 5, 56.5. Old D's an under. Ark State's an over. Ark State, no defense, but Old D's not, again, it's an under team. You're frozen. They're both passing teams. You go over or under. Ark State should score. Old Dominion won't score. So very, I hate the conflicting trends there. Houston against Rice. Houston is 17.5, 51.5. Really, it's about where it was. I have Houston as a 28-point favorite. They're only laying 17. Both are over teams. For some reason, Rice is an over team this year. I think it's just I think they played a very weak schedule. I think Houston's much the better team. But if Rice really has a quarterback, I have to check some more on that. Now, this is the second week in the row, and I'm wondering what the hell's going on with Houston, where their line has moved 6 points. Last week, the Kansas game went from 62 to 56, and we all know Houston won by put up an 80 in the game. Why did they drop 6 when it was clearly an over bet? Here, it's gone from 57.5 to 51.5. Why the drop? Why a 6-point drop? This is clearly an over, and at that price, it's clearly an over. So all I got to do is check the injuries, which I thought I checked, and I didn't see anything. And let me see what kind of offense Houston has. But at this point, this is a screaming over, A, because both teams are over, and B, the line's only 51.5. So neither team really has a defense, but it's different. Houston played UTSA. They played Kansas. They've been playing strong offensive teams going over, where Rice is not normally a strong offensive team, but I got to look who's their quarterback and what in the hell are they doing. I have them balanced, and I have Houston as a passing. So this looks like a very live overplay. Just because the line, which was 57, which is probably an over, down to 51. All they need is 45 with 2 over teams with 2 weak defenses. This will be done at halftime. So, again, I'm scratching my head why this line moves 6 points. This is the second time Houston has dropped 6 points. What the hell is going on? This is what I notice. I notice trends. That's my thing. And this makes no freaking sense for this line to drop in this game if Rice has a decent offense, which it appears they do. They suck defensively, which both teams do. But, again, Houston's been playing UTSA, and I think they even played a good game. The first game, I think, was against like a very strong team. So I don't know. I know they played UTSA in Kansas, so I don't mind them being an over, but they do score a lot. So Houston will get the 45 by themselves. Rice will come in with 20. You're only laying 45 and a half. Something's wrong with this game. We'll have to look, but there was nothing wrong with the Kansas game, and we were over in the third quarter. So I'll keep betting on the mistakes of Las Vegas. That's what I do. Kentucky and Northern Illinois. Kentucky's laying 26 and 53 and a half. 26 is about right. I had the line 24. Northern Illinois, their quarterback, I think, is out. He's questionable. Lombardi from Michigan State. With him, they're an over team, and they have an over defense. Without him, it's going to be hurting because he's a good quarterback. Kentucky's an A team. They went to Florida, beat them 26-16. I don't see Northern Illinois' defense is going to stop this team. Kentucky's a very good team. They're equal to Arkansas. So you've got to keep that in mind that they're not – see, Alabama gets a 5-point boost because they're Alabama. Everybody bets it. Nobody's betting Kentucky but us. So I like Kentucky here. If Lombardi doesn't play, if he does play, you maybe go over because Northern Illinois should score a little bit. But otherwise, I definitely like Kentucky here. Iowa 7.5 over Rutgers, 33.5. Oh my God! And that's down from 35. It's at the point. Yes, Iowa's a very low under team. But I did 2 of their receivers are back. They had 4 receivers on the injured list. This is why the guy can't score. 2 of them are back. So they did score a little last week. Definitely would be an underplay, but not at 34.5. Going under 40 in a teaser is ridiculous. So I don't buy that. Rutgers is terrible. It's almost a play like Iowa -1.5 because Rutgers probably is not going to score a team, but you can't count on Iowa to score. So a little stronger team, this would be Rutgers in 13.5, but they're not strong. This is a game, maybe you can take Iowa -1.5. I don't see how you play it under 34-40. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's where the number gets you off. Like a 75 over gets you off the over, a 34 gets you off the under. Marshall and Troy. Marshall 3.5. Where are you, Marshall? I think they're on the next page. Yeah. Marshall 3.5, 51.5. Down from 52, 3.5, up from 3. Marshall's an A team. Troy's an E team. Now, I did notice Ali, their great running back, is listed as questionable. He was off on some personal stuff. Don't know what it is, but he might be back or he's coming back soon. 3.5 over Troy. Troy had App State got beat on the Hail Mary at the end of the game. So Troy's not too bad. Marshall beat Notre Dame and then lose because this is where you're flat after the big win. Now they're off a loss. I think Marshall's the better team here. They are the A team. Troy is the E team. They got a balanced offense. Troy with more of a passing offense. It's a hard call. Road favorite Marshall. I would prefer them as the dog. That's what separates a no play from a lock, but that's where I'm at with that. So I don't know. We can find a lot better plays than that one. South Alabama, 13-16.5 over Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech's an over team with a bad defense. South Alabama's an A team. Came within a whisker beating UCLA with Robinson, 34-33 or something like that. So 60 points. So they scored on UCLA. They scored on Central. They kicked Central's ass. So this South Alabama team's pretty good. They probably get all the Alabama guys who are third string probably go there. Over under a 60. LTAC should light them up. They have a very good offense. I think this is an overplay. I don't like the 13 with an over team like Louisiana Tech, but I do believe it's an over. South Alabama they scored 30 on UCLA. They'll get at least 40 here. LTAC can score. 40 to 30 is not out of the questions. The 70 and you got 54. So I think that's the way to play this game is go over. A&M 2 over Arkansas, 48.5. I mean, I don't think I have to even say a word here. It's all Arkansas as a dog. They're much the better team getting points. A&M got lucky to beat Miami. I think they had a punt return or something. Look for Arkansas with Jefferson to not eat them up, but A&M doesn't have an offense, and we know Arkansas, and they played Georgia last year, so this will be a piece of cake defense. I got A&M as a weak team. They're on their second quarterback, and they both look like crap. And Arkansas is balanced, good quarterback, good defense, undefeated. I like Arkansas plus the 8. Get 9 if you can. The more the merrier. Tulane, Southern Miss. Tulane 13, 48.5. Tulane's an A team, but they haven't played anybody. Southern Miss is an even team. They were given Miami problems, and then Miami pulled away a couple weeks ago. Tough call. Let's see how strong. I mean, Tulane's an A team. Game could go under, could go over. I don't know. I don't really have a say on it. It's not a good play. All right, Vegas 3-63 against Utah State. Why is this line really, really strange? Now, I'm not in the lines. My line was Vegas -7. I'm only in the lines to see if I'm betting the game or not to analyze the line to say, well, why is Vegas doing this and making it this high? They know what they're doing. Vegas doesn't know shit. UNLV's been lighting it up. They've been scoring a lot, and Utah State sucks. Utah State is a Z team with an over defense, and UNLV's lighting it up. So let's look at what UNLV did last week, if I can find them quickly. UNLV. Where are they? Hold on one second. Here they are. Okay, they played North Texas, who's an over team. So they score a lot. Vegas won 58-27 over North Texas, who is not a Z team, who is an over team. 58 points. Now you get Utah State, who's a Z team, who doesn't score and has a weak defense, and they're only laying 3 points. Seriously? That's just a joke. I mean, UNLV is going to win this game by 3 touchdowns easily because Utah State just doesn't have offense and they don't have defense. And you can see Vegas, they put up 58. It's like Kansas. It's not an accident. When you start putting up 58 2 or 3 times, you got a good offense. And you only are going to get in trouble when you play Georgia or when you play Washington State or a Baylor or Oak State or one of these defensive teams. Not Utah State is not going to hurt UNLV. Take UNLV, you get 3 points. You don't need – here's where I argue about crossing over, right? You're laying 3. The line should be at least 7, probably 10. So you should really be laying 3 or 4. You get 3. Do I give a fuck that I'm crossing 0 in a game I should be laying 4 or 5, and I get 3 – with a team that's going to win by 25. So I don't care about it. It doesn't matter. The Vegas is the bet. And if you get a bad spread where they're only laying 3 instead of 7 or 10, thank you. I don't care crossing 0. What does that have to do with anything? All right. Yeah, see, here's Texas State against Houston Baptist. So I think that the UTS is playing Texas Southern, especially laying 42. That's why I didn't have it, because that's really the Texas State playing Houston Baptist. They won't put a line if there's not a Division I team. So if the Texas State here's Division I, UTSA can't be playing one. All right, solves that mystery. South Carolina 22.5 over Charlotte. Where are you, South Carolina? Okay, I'm on my second page. South Carolina 22.5, 66, up from 22. I think I had up to 66 last time. Now, South Carolina is a W team, weak offense. Rattler throws a lot of interceptions through the two against Georgia. And by the way, when you play a Georgia team here, Rattler, 300, 400 yards a game, 112, two interceptions. That's what Georgia does to you. They put pressure. Their secondary and their linebackers are super fast. These bubble little screens, they blow them up. The quarterback doesn't have time to throw. That's why they shut out every beater. If you can't run on them, and the quarterback has no time. So how are you going to score on Georgia? Thank you very much. That's the key to them, and nobody can figure them out because nobody's going to beat them. You got to have like Dan Marino with a very quick release, 1-2, get the ball out, and you got to have really fast receivers who can maybe cause a problem. But Georgia's cornerbacks are very strong. That's why 10 of the defense got drafted in the first 2 rounds last year. So they're, it's not a coincidence that they're like that and they got 10 guys drafted. And by the way, all the reserves are now playing and they're just as good as they were last year. So I don't know. Charlotte with Reynolds, he played last week, is a whole different team. They're an over team, weak defense. South Carolina given 22.5 to a very explosive with Reynolds Charlotte team. I like the 28.5 there with Charlotte. I'll tell you that. I don't buy South Carolina's going to beat them by 16. I don't think they'll beat them by 10. I think this will be a very close game. Now, the over-under is 66. I don't trust Rattler to score 40 points on them to get to the 66 that you need. So, without a running tack and just with Rattler, I like the 28.5 with Charlotte if I have to play the game. I don't love the game, but as long as Reynolds is playing, I like Charlotte here. NC State, 38.5, down from 39. Against and 49.5 down from 50. So it's down a half a point. Z team Connecticut, A team NC State. NC State, good defense, good quarterback, score a lot. 39, big number. But again, against Connecticut, the Z team, North Carolina State should kill them. It'll be 50-3, something like that. Wisconsin, Ohio State. Ohio State 19-57. That was a good year. 1957. Wisconsin, I don't know what they are. I think they're an under team. I don't think they're a B team because they got skewed by the big number they put up last week on New Mexico State, who's a Z team. Ohio State got a little bit better against a good Toledo team. Notre Dame, they played like shit, and then the next week, I think they played okay. Lane 19. This is a hard game, but I think I like Ohio State by 13. Again, keep them under 14, but I can just see this game, national TV at night. They eventually run away with it. It's close, and then by the end of the third quarter, they're up 27 or something. That's how I see this game. You can't play it over because Wisconsin can't score, and they have a fairly good defense. So I think Ohio State, the defense keeps them in it, Wisconsin's, and then eventually they tire out, and eventually Ohio State puts up a couple touchdowns, a pick six. Remember, Wisconsin has no offense. They never have a quarterback. So I looked for Ohio State, lane 13. Again, it's like the Notre Dame. We wanted to keep it under 10, and they win by 11, and we won. Same thing here. They're laying 19, keep it under 14, but it's a tricky one. Wisconsin's, anytime you got the good defense, I don't really love to play it. I think the number's a little bit high. I have Ohio State minus 21 in my spread. Tough game, but I think Ohio State wins it by around 20 or so. Northwestern, Miami of Ohio. Northwestern laying 7.5 and 50, up from 49. Northwestern beats Nebraska, which you think's good, and then you realize Nebraska sucks. They lose to Duke, who's okay, and then they lose to Division II team. Miami of Ohio is a good team, but the quarterback's out. Gabbert is out. He hurt his upper body and he's out. So you got Miami of Ohio without a quarterback with a very weak defense against Northwestern, who's okay with a very weak defense. What do you do? How do you take Northwestern to win this game when they really don't play well? The over-under of 50. Miami of Ohio without their quarterback with a weak defense, Northwestern with a weak defense. How do you play two weak defenses under 50, under 56? I'm at a loss on this game. I think Northwestern wins because the quarterback Miami of Ohio is out, but I can't even trust that. They just lost the Division fucking 2 team. So that's a game I am no interest in. It's like poker. Sometimes you lay the hand down and you don't lose any more money is the prudent play, and more valuable than winning the hand is not losing the hand. And that's a perfect example of don't even look at it, don't play it. Okay, Alabama 40.5, 58.5. Up from 40, 58.5, about where they were. Vandy's an over team this year. They were a Z team. Now, a lot of their points came against Hawaii and then another weak team. They played Wake and lost like 38-28. If Wake's putting up 38, Alabama's putting up 50. Vandy, are they going to score on Alabama? Probably not a lot. Do I play it over? Will I get points from Vandy? 58.5. I can go over 52 with Alabama. I think that's probably the play. Alabama scores in the 50s in this game and probably covers it by themselves because Vandy has no defense. But Vandy with an over maybe puts up 10 points. So maybe you get 10 points from Vandy to help. I'm not laying 34 in conference with Alabama. Once you're in conference, forget these 40. They're not playing New Mexico State here. So they're not playing Massachusetts or Connecticut. They're not playing the Z teams. Vandy's an over team, and granted, they don't have a good defense, and Alabama will light them up. But you can't lay 40 in conference, though. It's just they have good players too. Purdue 17.5, 59 against Florida Atlantic. Good God. 17.5 and 59 down from 61. Jesus, 17. Okay. Purdue's a B team. Florida Atlantic's an over that got killed by UCL last week. All of a sudden, we're at Purdue, so now they're going up in class to a Big Ten team. Purdue, good offensive team. Florida Atlantic with Perry, you thought was a good offensive team, but didn't show up against UCF. Purdue laying 17.5. I think Purdue wins the game by 20 or so. Good offense at home. They need the win. Florida Atlantic loses to UCF, shows me they're just what happened to their defense. So I think Purdue's the play here. LSU, New Mexico, 31.5, 45. LSU. Where did they put LSU on me? This is one of those time change. Where the hell are they on the schedules? Come on. Here we go. 31. So it went 31.5, 45.5. So really no movement. A big number. New Mexico is a good under team, a good defense, but no offense. LSU is getting better. After their loss to Florida State, they blew out Mississippi State. What can you say? So they're starting to use what I thought they'd be with the good athletes, good coaching. 31 to New Mexico is a big number. 45.5 is kind of a small number. LSU, I think Saturday night in Baton Rouge, I think they'll cover 45.5 goes over 39.5. I think they get over 39. I don't think New Mexico scores a lot, but you only need 39.5. And I think LSU is going to, put up they'll put up a 40. And that's all you need. I think LSU handles it. I don't think New Mexico, good defense is not in Baton Rouge on a Saturday night. You're going to hold them down to 16 points. So I think this, because of the line, makes it an over. Florida State, Boston College. Florida State 17.5, 48.5. Really right where it's at. Florida State, watch the quarterback. He was shaken up. He's questionable. If he plays, Boston College is terrible this year. If he doesn't play, it's an under because BC won't score for you. If he does play, take Florida State laying the 11.5. Hawaii, New Mexico State, the battle of the Z's. New Mexico State 5 and 52.5, and that's it went down from 55. I don't know, people running the bet, the under on Hawaii, New Mexico State. They're both Z's. They both have weak defenses. I can't play a Z team. I guess New Mexico State at home, if you really want to play the game, would be the play. How can you trust Hawaii plus 11? And then over under, who knows? So no, it's a game. Just forget about it. Okay. Kansas State, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's looking better. They're playing more like Clemson with the tough D. They're playing really tough D. 12.5, 52.5. Now, Oklahoma won a big game against Nebraska. They're going to be a little bit flat. They have to be. Kansas State's a B team. They got the Nebraska quarterback Martinez, who sucks at Kansas State. So he's just as bad here as he was at Nebraska. They do have a running back, Deuce Vaughn. Oklahoma looks really good. They're scoring. They win against Nebraska will help. They are at home, and it's a conference game. I don't think they'll be flat. If this game was at Kansas State, I would worry. I think Oklahoma, you're laying only 12.5. I think laying the 6.5 is a very small line the way Oklahoma's playing. He's got them playing Clemson defense. Their defenses look very good, and they are scoring enough. So Oklahoma is a very strong A team. I don't think K-State's a B team. Statistically, they are, but I'm sure there was some Division II crap in there. Louisiana Lafayette against Louisiana Monroe, 9 and 51.5. Louisiana Monroe is in an adjustment period. Levi Lewis, quarterback's gone. The coach went to Florida. Spread's 9. Louisiana Monroe's a Z team, but it's probably a rivalry game. I don't know. Louisiana Monroe, terrible defense. Lou Lafayette should probably win by 3, but we don't know how strong they are yet. And the new coach, let's give them a few more games. USC 5.5, 70.5. That line's going down from 7 down to 5.5 and 70.5. Now we saw the 70.5 last week against against a good offensive team, Fresno State, and it was right there. Fresno State's got the ball at the 1 yard line at the end and doesn't, they had the backup quarterback in, so I'm sure they'd score more. Oregon State is just like the other games, like the Oregon is at Washington State. USC, now they're at Oregon State. Now they did win at Stanford. So they have went on the road and won, and they've totally dominated a good Fresno State team. I don't see how Oregon State's going to stop USC. Oregon State, I love them. Chase Nolan and the running backs, they're both very balanced. It's a question of who's got the better defense. Question other is, can you stop USC? And I don't think Fresno State, who had a fairly good defense. Now, Oregon State played Fresno State, beat them 38-35. We had them as a dog a few weeks ago. And I said USC, blew out Stanford, who, not too bad. And then they kind of blow out Fresno State, a very good team. I got to take USC here. I just find that this offense, after watching it now against Stanford and Fresno State, is who the hell can stop this? Maybe Utah, obviously Georgia, maybe even Oklahoma, ironically enough, with that defense. The best defense in the conference is Washington State, and we'll get a good look. But right now, I got to believe USC beats Oregon State. Now, this will probably go over because we're not playing the over. I think the prudent play is SC just to win. My spread, SC minus 21. They're laying 5.5. I'm shocked. I'm shocked it's 7 down to 5.5. I didn't see any major injuries, but, there's a few questionable to some receivers. Oregon State's fairly healthy. I just think they're a home dog and people are betting them. Again, not getting the full brunt of USC/Oklahoma here. You're not going to stop this offense. I think at the end of the day, if they need to score, they'll score. I don't know if Oregon State can keep up. And it seems when you get down inside the red zone, inside the 10 on USC, they get turnovers. They stop you from scoring. Twice Fresno State had the ball at the goal line and didn't score with the stupid run up the middles that I hate. I just think USC is the better team. Like I said, like Texas, like Clemson. It was 7, and I liked SC minus 1. Now it's 5.5, and I get a half a point. I don't even care. Now they just got to win. It's even better. I just think SC's got the better team. I love Oregon State. They're a very good team, but I don't think their defense is going to stop SC from winning the game. All I got to do is win the game. I'm not laying 14 here. I'm not Ohio State laying 19-13 against Wisconsin. I am even at Oregon State. As much as I like Oregon State, they don't have the defense. USC gets the win like they did at Stanford when that was a lock, when they were laying 7 at Stanford, and I just had to win by 1, and they won by 30. BYU 22. Where are you, BYU? BYU 22-50. Line hasn't moved against Wyoming. Wyoming's an even team. Lost to Illinois, then beat Air Force, my Air Force team. So that was a little bit shocking. BYU, as we know, beat Baylor somehow and then comes back to lose to Oregon because they really weren't ready for Bo Nix. They probably had the Auburn tapes. They'll be pissed. They lost. Wyoming doesn't have an offense. Weak offense. BYU should punish them. Good quarterback in Hall. See, here's where this is what makes betting hard. We bet BYU. So we bet Baylor against BYU. We win. Then we see Baylor at Oregon as a dog. We go, oh, well, they're a dog. We'll bet them. Mistake 1, they're flat after beating Baylor. Now, mistake 2 is when you don't bet BYU because you get mad and you go, well, fuck it. BYU cost me money last week. I'm not going to bet them. Well, if we didn't bet them and they lost, and now we see them 22 over Wyoming, would we bet them this week? You've got to forget. It's like a jump shooter. You threw an air ball. You got to forget it and just keep shooting. You got to forget that they lost to Oregon and it cost us money. It happens. We don't win all our bets, but we can't get mad at the ones that we lose and never bet them against because they're a good team. BYU is a good team with a good quarterback, and Wyoming is a decent defense with no offense. So are they going to really hold BYU off of a loss? Now you're laying 22 is a little bit of a big number. You lay 16. I think it's a little high here. I do think BYU beats them, but I'd love to see it down where we could be under 14. So the numbers preventing me from playing it, not losing last week. I don't know. I got to think about this a little bit more. Wyoming, a good defense, is not going to – they beat Baylor. They're going to score, but Wyoming's not going to score. I'm going to say 34-10 BYU here, which is right about the number. So it's a tough one. My Utah team, 15.5, 54 to Arizona State. Arizona State fires their coach. Arizona State this year is an even team. They score in the mid-20s, give up mid-20s. Utah is an A, rising, great offense, great quarterback. They are both balanced. But Arizona State without the coach, they don't have a chance. And then Utah, you're talking about 15.5. You got to win by under 10. I think Utah's the play here under 10. in the desert, so the weather will be good. If you still had Herm Weather, the Arizona State would do very well at home, but without the coach, they got to be disorganized this week. So I like Utah minus 9.5. Washington 13.5, 63.5 against Stanford. Line hasn't moved since yesterday. Washington, now they look good with Penix. Where the fuck was he last year when I'm betting Indiana because of Penix and he doesn't show up? Now I got Penix at Washington and he shows up. They got DeBoer, the coach from Fresno State. It's just like the Oklahoma now has the guy from Clemson and they're playing good defense. DeBoer's got them playing better offense. Stanford, a B team, but I don't know. They got crushed by USC, 64. Stanford's a little more balanced with the strange offense where they're holding the ball and the running back's stomach for 20 minutes against Washington at home. Now, Washington played Michigan State. Are they going to be flat from the win? I don't know. It wasn't an emotional type of win. They didn't win it at the end on Ken Stabler hitting Clarence Davis with 2 seconds left. That made it an emotional win, beating Miami. Do you have the same situation? No, they kind of killed Michigan State, which is better than Stanford, and they're at home in conference, so it's less likely that Washington's going to be flat at home, like BYU was flat after beating Baylor going to Oregon. That's what you got to look at. So BYU's flat going to Oregon, where Washington's at home playing a weaker Stanford team. Now, 13.5, is that a problem? We got to lay 7.5. Yeah, that's a bit of a high number. Washington did handle Michigan State, but the receivers were out. So it's a tough call. I think Washington State minus 7.5 is a good call. I think Washington has a good defense. So I think at home they should get the win. Last game, San Jose State, 7:49 against Western Michigan. Where are you, San Jose State? Here you go. 7:49. There's 7:49. No change. San Jose State's an under team, passing team. Western's a W and a weak offense. San Jose State at home against a weak defense in Western. Time change in San Jose State's favor. This is a 10:30 game. It's going to affect Western Michigan because they're in bed by 10:30. And you're going to start the game at 10:30. So this is an advantage San Jose State. Are they a good enough team, though? They're an under team. They don't really have a good quarterback. Western has no defense. I think San Jose State, you lay the 1, but it's a tough game because it's the wrong type of game. It's an under against a weak defense. And whenever you get that, it's very difficult. So that is our lines. So many games. That's our lines. Now, I went through quite a few. Now, I wasn't in the beginning, so I'm going to go back to the first column. Syracuse, a B team against Virginia, minus 10, over under 54. They're both passing teams. Syracuse has been playing very well. I like them laying the 4, I think. The spreads went up from 9 to 10. I just think they're the better team. Virginia is not really, they're a weak offense. Nevada Air Force off of a loss to Wyoming, laying 24 to a under Nevada team with a weak offense. A running game like Air Force. I look for Air Force to be very pissed off about losing to Wyoming. It is a conference game to Wyoming and this game, so they must win this game. Air Force is a very good team at home. Now, keep in mind, Air Force is in Colorado and Nevada's in Nevada, so they're both in the same, but they're both in altitude. Air Force is in Colorado and Nevada is in the mountains in Reno, so other Nevada, but I like Air Force to they're just going to run it down their throats and they're just going to keep running and running and running, and Nevada really is not a great defensive team, and they don't have an offense, but I don't think they can stop Air Force. After a loss, that's what the key is here. Boise 16.5 against UTEP. UTEP's a W team. They're getting really bad, but Boise's not Boise. They're just a different team. They're an even team. They got a weak offense. When have you ever seen Boise with a weak offense? UTEP is a passing team, but they're kind of weak defense on the road. Boise -6. I don't like the game at all. Maybe Boise, but Boise's not Boise, so it's hard to lay 10.5 on the road with Boise. Clemson 7. I think this is where we came into it. So Clemson -7 against Wake. You got a great defense without a very good offense against one of the best quarterbacks who's back, Hartman. What do you do with it? Again, if you go to defense, Clemson's defense is much better than Wake's. Wake's has they're an over team, great quarterback, but an over defense. Clemson's going to run the ball down their throat, and Clemson has the good defense. I think Clemson, they pounded Wake last year, so they've seen Hartman before. I just think Clemson -1. Now, the problem is the stand quarterback. They won't switch. But I think the balance on them running, I think Clemson gets the win. But just because of Wake's defense being so bad, I think that's the key. They have such a bad defense. Even Uglandi, he's going to just hand off to Shipley and let them run down their throat, and then they're going to play defense, and that'll neutralize Hartman. So I think this is where you look at the defense, and you can't take Wake against this defense. It's just he won't have time. He'll be pressured. It's just too difficult. You want to play Hartman against a weak defensive team. That's why we look at the defenses, right? I don't want Hartman against this defense. I'm not touching this with the 10-foot pole. North Carolina, I love the over when Wake plays North Carolina. But in this situation, you cannot fuck with the Clemson defense. It's just too strong. Iowa State, Baylor, 2.5. I think I said we take Baylor. They're an A team. Iowa State's an under team. Iowa State, even if they win, they're not going to win by 10. Baylor lost to BYU. I think BYU's probably better than Iowa State, and it was an overtime game. Baylor in conference should be pissed off. They're a very good team. The quarterback is a good quarterback, but he's getting better. So I think Baylor is a very live dog in this game. And then we talked Kansas Duke. That was your free game. Michigan, I'll just mark down some of the plays. Michigan -11. Georgia under. Auburn, Missouri. Probably Missouri there. Mississippi State, Bowling Green, maybe Mississippi State. TCU, SMU, I think the Dogs live over under a 70. That I think you would get. That I think you could put a little bit on with these offenses. I think TCU. Now, SMU played Maryland last week. I was shocked. It only got into the 60s. I would have thought it got into the 80s because Maryland doesn't have a very good defense, and we know SMU can light it up. So SMU at home, I would think this game goes over the 64. Cincinnati, Indy, I think Cincy's laying too many points. I think it's an under. UCF, Georgia Tech, I think you're betting against the Z team there. UCLA going against the Z team over Colorado. Notre Dame, North Carolina, who knows? So that's basically the thought process. I have 4 locks going this week, 3 college, and I finally have a pro lock that I feel very good about. Probably another 6 to 8 college plays. And this is the first week where I really got some good pros out there that I've figured out. When I do my pros tomorrow, you'll get a better feel. But the pros are starting to form, like Jacksonville. Like the worst team now is Indy in Tennessee's week. And Indy was favored in both games. One was at home to the Giants. One was on the road to the Giants. And they got killed in the Jacksonville game, and they didn't show up in the Giant game. So, or was that Tennessee lost to Giants? But Indy lost to they tied Houston, and they lost to Jacksonville. What do you should be 2-0, and you're 1-1. So now that's what changes. Now I've got Indy sucks. They're the Z team. We'll bet against them. Now, if Matt Ryan turns it on, then we change it, and then maybe they go to an E team or something. But we found our Z team. We found the mother, and Tennessee's not far behind them. And then we've got our A teams. Tampa, Green Bay will be an A team, Kansas City, Buffalo, which is about what we thought, but now we've got a little more confirmation. Tampa's defense is wicked. And then we see our over and under teams like the Bears and Houston and Frisco and Denver and things like that. We see Philly and Washington are over teams. Detroit looks like an over team. Minnesota, we have no idea what Kirk Cousins is, what drugs he starts with each game. Philadelphia, how good are they? Miami, Baltimore, those I'm still now Miami plays at home against Buffalo. This will be a very good. Now what do we do with them? Is Miami an over? Or did Baltimore get tired? And then Tagovailoa throws up 28 in the fourth quarter against the tired defense. That's always been my problem with the first, at least week one, is you don't know what you've got. You don't know, Minnesota beats Green Bay. Oh, Green Bay's a terrible team? I don't think so. Is Minnesota really that good? I don't think so. And that's the problem with week one in the NFL. And you almost throw it out and you get 3 or 4 weeks. And now you go, oh, okay. Yeah, Green Bay really was sleeping through week one, as were the Rams. And now in week two, you see, yeah, Green Bay is really Green Bay. Minnesota's really Minnesota. Philly, oh, yeah, they might have an offense. And that's what we learn. In college, it's a little bit more. We're looking at quarterbacks. We're betting on Van Dyke. We're betting on Hartman. We're betting on Rising at Utah. We're betting on USC. So you get a little bit different scope of games. So anyway, this should be a very good week. Again, 4 locks, could be more. Keep an eye on the injuries. Your free game here is Kansas. I will give you a free pro game. Let me give you a free pro game. A free pro game will be let's take Kansas City laying the half against Indy will be my free one. You're not going to stop Mahomes, and I don't know where Indy's going to score. You can't score on Jacksonville. You're going to light up Kansas City, and even if you do, you're not going to stop Mahomes. So that's where my spread's 10 and their spread's 6. That's where my spread comes in. That's the real line, but they only want to do 6 because of the betting, and I just don't see it. So there's your free pick, Kansas City with the Kansas only laying 1 point to Duke. Unbelievable. So that's what you look at as you're learning the teams. You're watching the games. When I watch a highlight, 20 minutes of the Kansas-Houston game, I'm watching Kansas. How's their defense? How are they moving the ball? Is it a fluke or are they driving? What's Houston look like? What's their defense? I'm looking for defense. I'm looking for running. I'm looking for those things because at the end of the day, when I see Kansas put up 45 on West Virginia and then come back on Houston, I'm going, fuck, these guys are strong offensively. The defense is okay, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to stop them. Unless you have a strong defense, they're going to outscore you, and there's nothing you can do because they have a very well-coached team, a very strong quarterback. Where's my Lamar Jackson guy? That's the difference. If Lamar Jackson could throw the ball like this Kansas guy, I'd be all over Lamar Jackson. I don't hate Lamar Jackson for any reason except he can't throw the ball. He's not a good quarterback. I like Jefferson at Arkansas. I like this kid at Kansas. They are running type of quarterbacks, but they are freaking accurate. They throw all, they use their receivers, they use their running backs. That's why it works. It's always worked, and it always will work. So take Kansas City. It's a Kansas City free pick, and good luck with that. But again, 4 locks, could be more so far this week. And really, I'm just feeling it. I mean, USC, Clemson, Texas, all laying a half a point. Jesus Christ. UNLV, 2.5 over Utah State. Are you kidding me? These teams, it's all about offense, really. I mean, why does the team suck? Why are they Z teams? Because they score 10 points with a weak offense. Their defense is on the field. So their defense isn't really that bad, but they're on the field the whole game. Their offense doesn't score. The defense gives up. Okay, it's 35-0. We can't even get a first down. And they lose 59-0. But when you get an offense like what Kansas is doing, or Georgia Southern, or, so look at the difference between Kansas and Iowa. Kansas is putting up numbers on good teams. They're going to put up their 40 points. Their defense plays better. Iowa's defense is freaking out, going, shit, these guys can't they kick 2 field goals a game. We got to play perfect on defense. Now they have an excellent defense, but they're more reliant on the defense. So, if Rutgers gets a pick 6 and a kick return, they get 14 points that Iowa can't score 14. And the defense played well, but you lost. So, I mean, that's the difference. But Kansas, they didn't give up a kick return. Doesn't matter. They're going to score 45 points. So is Georgia Southern. So I like those teams. And then you get like a Washington State with this strong defense, then it's a little bit different. They still have an offense, but not a big one, not a Kansas offense. And then what you're looking for is like a USC or like an Alabama or Ohio State. They score 50 and have a great defense. Those are the rare teams, but that's what you're trying to find is not Ohio State and Alabama. Those are obvious. You're trying to find Georgia last year. You're trying to find a Washington State with a good defense, a Baylor, Oregon State, USC this year, UCLA, Utah. That's what you're trying to find is the under-the-radar teams before they hit the radar. I used to do it with California. California had a good coach. He's now, I think, the Fresno State coach. God, I can't think of his name. And that guy covered as a freaking dog. Like, I started noticing it. I was keeping track of dog, right? Of everything. And so I'm noticing California is like 13-0 as a road dog. And then I noticed them as a road dog. And I think they went to Michigan State getting 7. I took them plus 13. They win the game. And it was just like, I found the team. And they would cover. They'd always be road dogs because they're under the radar, and they always covered. Then eventually, that's when like Aaron Rodgers was there, and then they started getting Javad Best, and all these running backs started going there, and then they weren't dogs anymore. But I think it might have been Aaron Rodgers' first year or something where they were dogs and they were covering all the freaking time. And that's what you look for, be it Georgia Southern or now Vegas is scoring. That's what you want is that team that kind of sucks. Now this year they got better, and now they're scoring, so they got a good quarterback like Kansas. That's the teams you jump on. Freaking Kansas laying 7 to Duke, where, you look at Air Force laying 24 to Nevada. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, risk-reward. You have very low risk with Kansas and a huge reward because it's the same bet versus an Air Force laying 24 against Nevada, where they'll probably hammer them because they're coming off of a loss. But that's what I'm looking for. So you're looking for strong Washington States or Kansas or Georgia Southerns or Vegas this year. You already got like an Arkansas and a Baylor as dogs, and UCLA we'll see coming up when they play USC and Utah. They'll probably be the dog, and they're very live dog. USC is going to be a 100-point game, and I'll be curious, is USC going to be a 7-point favorite against UCLA, or is it going to be more? But that's the team that can beat them. Utah is the team that can beat them. I don't know if they go to Oregon, but USC's in the South. I don't know if they'll play Oregon and Washington, and Washington State and Oregon State. They're playing Oregon State, so I doubt they're going to play Washington and Oregon, but we'll see because the South plays all the South and then a few of the North. So that's what you're really looking for, and that's what I find. That's why I go through the box scores and I go through the stats and I go look at the quarterbacks. That's what I'm looking. I'm looking for like Zappy last year at Western Kentucky. Never heard of him. I know Western Kentucky throws the ball, and I started looking at the guy's stats. He's like 35 touchdowns and 2 interceptions after 6 games. I'm like, shit, I'm jumping on this guy. That's what you want because he scores and he doesn't turn the ball over. So I get scared when I see a quarterback who's got 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, aka the guy at Clemson. That's what scares me about Clemson. The guy turns it over and doesn't produce points. That's the problem. That's what you're trying to avoid is that kind of stuff. So that's why you look at the stats. But the difference between us and the rest of these guys is we know what to look for, right? I'm looking at the quarterback touchdown interception. How many other guys are looking at that? They're looking at time of possession or who knows what they're looking at. I don't even want to know. Or they're putting in their math figures going, oh, the Houston shouldn't be that high. They should be 6 points lower because 5 years ago, they only averaged 35-point games or something. Who knows what the fuck they're talking about? But mine's been tried and true since 77. And I've weeded out. I think the most important thing you ask yourself is why? Why did I bet that game? Why did I bet Baylor to beat BYU? Because Baylor was a good dog and they won. Why did I bet BYU against Oregon? Because BYU was the dog, but I missed the part of the being flat because BYU is an independent. I didn't think they'd get flat, and I didn't think Oregon was that good. I thought, oh, there's a weak team. BYU just beat Baylor. I get points with the better team, but weren't the better. They were flat. So that's the other emotional part of it. So that's why you rank the teams. But with Oregon, I didn't have enough information, and they played really well. Give them credit. But now I think they'll be flat at Washington State, and Washington State wins. I would be like, yeah, they should have won. Yep, absolutely. So that's what you look for, and you always ask, why did I lose? You know, in the pros last week, why did I lose? Why did I lose Detroit, Washington? I had Washington in 8 because fucking Washington missed 2 extra points. What is with these teams? They go for 2 like it's automatic, and they never get it. They get it once in a while, but just kick the fucking extra point. So again, why did I lose? You should have a reason for betting the game. Okay, Cincinnati lost the first week. Maybe you bet on the second week because they'll bounce back. But they're not that type of team. Now they're down 2-0. Now, okay, they've lost 2 in a row. Now they're going to get a little bit pissed off. You got Joe Burrow. Now maybe they win. Who do they play? The Jets. The Jets haven't been too bad. They're not the Z team. They've moved into a W. They're a little bit stronger. They did win last week over Cleveland with a big comeback. Are they going to get that against Cincy? So there's a lot to ask, but the thought before is why. So now you're thinking, is Cincinnati really going to go 0-3? I mean, they got Burrow and Chase and went to the Super Bowl. So that's what you're looking for. That's your why. And then if the game loses, then you go back and say, well, why did I bet Cincinnati? Well, they lost 2 in a row. But do I think Cincinnati's good enough to win when they need to? That's the question. Just because they went to the Super Bowl last year, they had some great comebacks against Tennessee and Kansas City and played the Rams tough. But are they like Kansas City can handle being a 10-point favorite? Can Cincinnati? Are they going to blow you out? And they blew out Pitt and Baltimore. But I think there were dogs in those games or 2-point favorites. They're not 14-point favorites and they go and crush you the way Brady is and the way Russell Wilson gets and Mahomes. They're powerhouse teams. I don't think Cincinnati's a powerhouse team. They're probably a live dog, but they're certainly not they're favored by 10. I'm going to lay 4. They're not Ohio State. So you got to like Tampa can be a 10-point favorite. Green Bay was last week and showed it. can Cincinnati. They're not there yet, and that's what you're waiting for. So don't over or undervalue teams. Don't undervalue the Jets and say, well, that's the Jets. They suck. They don't suck. They just came back and beat Cleveland. So they're better than you think, or Cleveland's worse than you think. And that's what you, over time, weed out. You go, you know what? They're not as bad. Jacksonville, are they that bad? Well, they won 2, what are they, 2-0 or 1-1, 24-0 over Indy. Well, Indy sucks, so does it really count? This week, Jacksonville has San Diego. Now, the question is Herbert going to play with the hurt ribs? Well, he probably will. Probably take a shot, wear a rib vest. Then you wonder, why didn't he wear a rib vest last week? Like, why do you wait till you hurt your ribs to wear the vest? Just wear the fucking vest. So that's what you have. So now if Jacksonville goes to San Diego and Herbert plays and they beat them, beating Khalil Mack and Bosa and James and beating them, then Jacksonville turns into a B team or something. But as I would expect, then we know, well, they still aren't very good. They're getting better, but they're not very good. So, the first few weeks are surprises, little new coaches, getting the film. They don't play in the preseason. It's a nightmare. So week 1 and 2, you really don't know. After about 4 weeks, so after this one, like here, we'll see Jacksonville, San Diego, how good Jacksonville is. We'll see Atlanta and Seattle. We'll see how bad Seattle really is, how good Atlanta, they're scoring points. We know Green Bay, Tampa, Dallas and the Giants. The Giants are favored over Dallas. Now, a month ago, you would have thought Dallas would have been a 7-point favorite. Even with Prescott out, I don't have any problem with Rush here as a dog. I think it's a very live dog. I don't think the Giants are going to kill Dallas. I don't think they can kill anybody. And that's what you got. So you'll get more feeling after this week. You'll get a better feel, and as we go, a better feel. That's where I get stronger. So as we go, I get much stronger because now I've revealed the team that I know Tampa's revealed in Green Bay and Kansas City is the Jacksonvilles and the Atlantas and the New Orleans and the Giants. You need to reveal, did they make a change? Barkley's back for the Giants. Is that a big deal or not? They still have Daniel Jones. So that's what you're really seeing. Is Jacksonville making the jump? Are the Jets better? New England, we know, has quarterback problems. Baltimore, are they getting worse? How did they blow the lead? Because they don't run the ball. This is what blows my mind. You cannot think you got Lamar Jackson. He's not a running back. And you blow, there is no reason in the pros you blow a 21 or 28-point lead to Tagliabue. But where was the defense with Hill? And where is the offense running 7-8 minutes off the clock? I don't care if you have to go to a wishbone. You can't. You got to run time off the clock. What the hell happened in that game? You should never blow that lead. So now I'm wondering about Baltimore. Are they any good? And you got Baltimore laying 3 to New England. I'm like, they just blew the lead to Miami. What are they going to do in New England? New England beat Pittsburgh. So now you're going to learn Baltimore. If they lose to New England, they're really not that good, and they're overrated. And if New England beats Baltimore, they have beaten Baltimore and Pitt, and they're much better than I'm thinking. So should I take New England in 9? I don't know yet. I'll know in 2 weeks, but I won't know now. Anyway, that's what you're looking. You're trying to read. You're trying to reveal the teams. You're looking at stats to find a UNLV and a Kansas. That's why you look at the stats to reveal that. That's the point of what I do and what we do here. That's why I look at the stats, and that's why I watch the replay, because I can't watch 100 college games, and this way I can watch quite a few of them. I watched Texas UTSA, and it was right there. End of the third quarter, that game's tied. And then Texas they broke a run. They got a pick 6, and they win. But it was much closer than that. And I watched it to see if I should take Texas over Texas Tech. Is Texas really that good? Now I know UTSA is better than Texas Tech. But the game was at Texas. This game's at Texas Tech. It definitely matters in conference. how good's Texas Tech or how bad. They are an over team, which means they got an over defense. So Texas, they're running the ball. They should run it down their throats. But the question is, Texas Tech's offense, can Texas stop it? They stopped Alabama's passing. UTSA, Frank Harris was all over the place. He runs good and then he throws. So he's a very good passer. And he can maneuver away. Does Texas Tech have that? Maybe that bothers them, that mobile quarterback who floats in the pocket and, versus the guy who just stands in the pocket. So you have all that. And that's what so it'll be a big, how good's Texas and if Texas Tech wins, then they're much better. So I think, I think that's what you're learning. Arkansas State, Old D. You're learning. What are they? Can we bet on them? Can we make money on them? That's what this is all about. Anyway, I think that's about it. So again, 4 locks going. A lot of good college that I just talked to you about. A lot of good pros. Finally, 1 pro lock. So it should be a very good weekend. I covered all the college questions, comments. www.teaserking.com. Go there and you'll get my email, and certainly email me with questions, comments. You want to buy a package, we can talk about it, and we'll go there. So let me know if you want anything, if you have a question, if you want to, what do I think on Oregon, Washington State? No, I gave you that, but that's okay. That's why I try to go through all the games, because I get some weird requests, who do you like in the Arkansas State All D game? I don't know. I wouldn't bet. But if you want to bet it, and I don't know why you want to bet it. See, this is where most people have the problem. They're betting games that they shouldn't be betting. They're not looking at the best picks. Just stick with Kansas. What are you dicking around with Arkansas State Old D for? I mean, who knows? We know Kansas. We know Baylor. We know, Clemson and Texas and USC. What are you messing around with games you don't know? Now, are you betting it because you live there, or a player on the team, or probably my guess is you hear some guy on the radio or TV quoting this game. Oh, I like this game. And so you fall for it and you go, oh, I'm going to bet it. But let me ask the professor first. That's probably where you're getting them from. And I tell you, don't listen to that, because they're just trying to sell you. There's a BetMGM station on the radio, and these idiots, the total yards by Jalen Hurts will be over 100. Who the fuck makes that bet? You're gonna bet on over under on yard? Well, he's gonna rush for over 50 yards. Oh my God, who cares? What kind of bet is that? Are you really analyzing the offense and defense that strongly that they're gonna run and he's gonna get 50 yards? What if he gets injured? Well, those are the most stupid bets. Those in the total, well, Ohio State's going to win more than 12 games or something. Because the problem is you're betting into the future in football. And what if the guy gets hurt? Then you're not going to get over. And maybe you bet under and the guy got hurt, then you're okay. But if you bet over and then the guy gets hurt, which happens every time in football, how do you bet overs? It's insane. Just bet the fucking games, and then who cares the total wins? The total wins will happen. But meanwhile, you're betting the team that's hot, and it's doable. So don't fall for all that bullshit. It's just a way. It's just to get you to bet. And the more you bet, the more you're going to lose. That's why you got to be selective on your plays and build your bankroll. You can't bet a lot of these stupid bets. The team totals, the passing yards, all that shit. You can't bet that. We don't know it. We don't track it. We don't follow it. I don't care about it. Let it go. You're betting the team. We're looking at Texas -1 against Texas Tech. Are they going to do that? That's what we're looking at. I don't know how many yards the running back on Texas is going to score. I mean, I could probably give you like Oregon's guys will not catch 100 yards because of this defense. Or Georgia Southern, I would bet their running or quarterback, whatever, has a big game, but I can bet you if it's an over or under 67, but I can't tell you the quarterback's going to throw for 200 yards, but I can tell you they're going to light up Ball State because Ball State's a Z team. So if I was doing anything, I would look for the Z teams and make the over bets and look for the Washington States and Georgias and make I bet Kent State won't get 100 yards against Georgia. That I could maybe do. But what's the point? Just bet the freaking under in the game, and that's it. And that's all you got to do. So why get into these things? So watch, be careful, and don't be gullible. Okay, you got to trust the advice. I get a lot of that with gold and silver in the economy. I'm telling you there's inflation. Well, no, there isn't. Well, they'll just print money. They can't. The more money they print, the less value the money has. Buy gold and silver, and I'll get all these arguments or people are just don't understand, but they're afraid to listen to me. But if they listen to somebody else who says, oh, no, gold and silver, it's not a good value. So learn who to trust, learn who to take advice from, and learn who not to take advice from and not to trust. So that's really the key to life is who do I trust and who do I not trust, and listen to their reasons. And do they talk intelligently? Do they get to the point? Like you'll hear a lot of these guys on economic, and they don't get to the point. They talk and you go, what the hell did the guy just say? I try to get right to the point, and I've heard a lot of very good feedback from everybody that any questions, no, you explain it very well. Like after you're done explaining, I know exactly what you meant. That means I know it. Whenever you get somebody that won't explain it to you, he doesn't know it. Because if you know it, like I know it, I'm happy to explain and teach. I want to teach because I understand and know it. That's the key. So the guy who doesn't want to tell you doesn't know. And, just be careful with those people. All right. So that's college. Pros tomorrow. And again, 4 locks. This should be a very good week for the picks. I won't get BYU'd again. I might get Air Force after a loss that they're a good play, but I will not get BYU'd where I'm taking a team on the road after an emotional win and get screwed. Sometimes I got to lose one to make sure I don't do it again, but that's why I lost it. So I always ask the question, why did I lose it? Why did I lose USC Fresno State over? Because the quarterback got hurt 2 minutes into the third quarter for Fresno State. If he doesn't get hurt, we win easily. So that's what you asked that question. Now it was a fluke why I lost, but that's what happened. And I hope he's okay, and I hope he plays again, but he got Theismann, and it looked pretty bad. So I don't know. We'll have to see. He's listed as questionable for the game next week, so maybe he'll be okay. He's not out. And I've seen like the Ball State, the Miami of Ohio quarterback's out. He's out for the season. So they usually tell you. So maybe he just stretched some ligaments and he'll be okay to play. I hope so. But he's a really good quarterback. So anyway, why did I lose? Why did I win? And then that's what you understand how to bet for the next week. You're looking for the same things that made you a winner, and you look against the things that made you a loser. Sometimes you don't know why you lost. It's just bad. It's just turnover. Usually it's turnovers is why we lose. That's why I try to stay with the defense, because they're going to get me the turnovers. Like Coastal Carolina, Buffalo, we were losing because Coastal Carolina fumbled the ball 5 times. Well, I can't pick that. And if that's the reason we would have lost, that's okay. They fumbled 5 times, but they ended up winning anyway. Didn't like the 5 fumbles, but that was a reason they weren't scoring, because they should have put up 40 on Buffalo. So always look at the reason, look at the box scores, look at the stats, try to figure out the teams. That's what I'm showing you here. That's what I'm teaching you. Over, under, the A teams, Z teams. Bet against weakness. That's the biggest thing I can tell you, and get overs against Z's and things like that. And it's the same in the pros. Find the Z teams, Indy, bet against it. The perfect one with Kansas City. I got the over team against the Z team. Indy can't score on Jacksonville. They're not going to really light up KC, and I don't see how they're going to stop Mahomes. And you got them in a dome, so they're not going to be a weather issue. So look for Kansas City to really pound Indy, because they're the Z team and they look like shit. And Matt Ryan should have retired after they lost the Super Bowl. He should have retired. All right, www.teaserking.com. Questions and comments, go to my email, which is there. And again, if you want to purchase something, let me know. If you have a pick you want to talk about, let me know. If you want to play a 5-team teaser or something, let me know. And, I can help you with that. All right, everybody. Have a great night. I will see you tomorrow when we do the pros. I'll probably be on a little earlier. I had some errands to do today, and we'll go from there. All right. Have a great night. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the class. And good luck this weekend. All right. Bye-bye.